Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com. Today we're going to be talking about active scanning within Thinkorswim, looking for stocks that are popping. Now, your definition of popping may change and may be different from what I would consider popping, but generally speaking, it's a really good way to create an active watch list that will constantly scan for you without having to use any, external services or anything like that. It's all built into Thinkorswim. So, along with the way that I set it up, obviously you're going to be able to go over and adjust for pretty much anything. It doesn't really matter how you how you consider a popper, whether it's a distance between a moving average or a sudden move, etc. You can essentially update this and add or remove whatever you want to it, but it's a good kind of rundown of how to create an active scanning watch list. So first of all, we want to give this a name, right? So to get to the area that I'm at right now, you want to go into the Thinkorswim main page and go to Scan up at the top tab there. Once you're in the Scan tab, we're going to go to the Stock Hacker. Now, it doesn't have to be Stock Hacker. I'm just using it for stocks at this point in time. And then inside of this, you're going to want to give it a name. Now, you can give it a name by using this Scan Query menu, and you can save the scan query. Now, I saved this with the name of Poppers. Makes sense, right? That's kind of what we're going for. Now, from here, all we have to do is add a couple filters that I personally like when I'm talking about popping stocks. So the first thing that we want to add is add a filter for stock. You can click that button, and it's going to add a new filter. Now, inside of here, what we want to do is go down to the M's where it says Mark. So stock mark. Right, and what this is doing is it's allowing us to define a certain price range, the market price. Now, this is where you can get really variable. Some people prefer very cheap stocks, like even as low as 5 cents, or all the way up to $1 million, whatever. Right, this is where you can adjust these types of things. Now, for me personally, I'm not a huge fan of stocks that are below $10, but some of them can be pretty okay. I generally don't like them below $1, especially not below 50 cents. So I would say at minimum, for me, it would be about 50 cents, but in reality, I would say about $1 in the way that I like kind of looking for them. Now, maximum, I really don't care how much or how expensive it goes in this case, because, well, if it's a very expensive stock, it's probably really volatile, and you might not have to buy that many shares. So for me personally, I really don't have a max price, but I do want a minimum price. I don't want anything under $1, and arguably you could even bump that to 10 if you wanted to. So that's filter number one. We're essentially defining a list of the stocks that we want. And right now, all we're telling this is that I want all stocks between $1 and $10,000. That's going to be a pretty big list. So we need to narrow this down a little bit further. We're going to add another filter for the stock. But this time we're going to go down to the volume because we want stocks that are actually trading, right? We want some volume on these things. So a minimum of 10,000, right? So I want a minimum of 10,000 volume and a maximum, again, I really don't care what the maximum is. I just want to know that there's actually some volume trading. And this is especially useful when we're talking about extended hours because extended hours, pre-market as an example, there's going to be a lot of stocks where maybe someone bought one share at the market on Robinhood and it's up 20%. Is it really popping? I mean, kind of, right? But that's just because, well, it's super illiquid and there's not really anything going on other than someone just bought a couple shares at the market price, which happened to be a lot higher. So we want to make sure that there's actually some volume trading, a minimum of 10,000. If you're doing an active scan during market hours, you could easily bump that up to a lot more. But for pre-market, at least assuming that some of these scans are going to happen in the pre-market, if not most of them, I want to make sure that it's at least 10,000 shares traded, because if it's not, I really don't care. So now, what is our search involving? Well, it's looking for all stocks that are between $1 and up to infinite, and in terms of volume, at least 10,000 shares traded all the way up to infinite. That's still a really big list. It's not narrowing down much. So we need to add another filter. Now, this is where the popping part of things come in, because now we're going to add a filter for a study, right? Add a study filter. And from here, we're going to look at the popular studies, right there, and we're going to go into moving average scan. Now, moving average scan, this is really cool because this will allow you to scan pretty much anything you want when we're talking about the moving averages and, kind of based around that. And you'll notice one very obvious one is at least 10% above. That's a lot. But what we can do here is we can say that I want the close, right, the close of the candle to be at least, in this case, 4% above the specified moving average. So in this case, I like the 21 period moving average, and I prefer exponential if I can. So I'm going to go exponential right there. So this is now searching for all stocks that are between $1 up to infinite with a volume of at least 10,000 up to infinite that are at least 4% above the 21 period moving average, right? Now, 4% above a moving average is a lot, especially when you're talking about some slightly more expensive stocks. You're going to see this pick up on a lot of very cheap stocks because it's not hard to get them to pop 4%. 4% on something like Amazon, that's a different story, right? That's a whole lot of movement. So 4% might be a little bit aggressive, and you could arguably adjust this down to maybe 2% if you were using a filter of $10 or more, right? So just kind of accommodating for slightly more expensive stocks or slightly cheaper stocks, etc. This is why it's so nice that we can vary all of these different things. So that's really all we're looking for. Now, again, you can add even more filters to this. You can add even more studies in this. You can do all kinds of stuff. But what we need to do is include the fact that the time period is a daily. I might not really care about the daily. I don't necessarily want the daily to be that far above it. It might be useful if you're a longer term swing trader. But for me, I want to watch the 1 minute chart. And I want extended hours included, so I'm going to check mark that. And I want something that's popping aggressively in the pre-market that's showing some decent movement to the upside. And then we'll run a scan. Now, currently, I am looking at a list of a good handful of stocks here. And if we look at these, we can see the last price, $33, $10, $25. All of these are showing some very good movement above the moving average. Now, at the time of recording this, it's the weekend, so this isn't going to update. But what we can do is, now that we have our list defined, right? Now that we have our list defined, we can go in and we can click on this and save the scan query one more time, and we'll save it as poppers again. Yes, I want to override it. Now, this is the cool thing about this, because now that we have this saved, we can simply create a watch list. So once we have our watch list created, all we have to do is pop out a watch list. So what we can do is, let me pop out a watch list really quick here. So we'll go to the side menu, and we'll look for a watch list item here. So we'll add a new watch list, add a column, and we're going to go down to watch list down here. And from this watch list, we're going to go into personal, and this one is called poppers, so it's between I and U. So personal IU, and we'll find poppers right there. So now that we have the poppers list on here, what we can do is use this dropdown and detach the gadget. So now I can move this wherever I want on my screen, and it's always going to be actively scanning for me. Now, again, keep in mind, the markets are closed, so nothing's showing up in here. But that's all you have to do, right? That's all you have to do to get this list to load up, and this will constantly scan for you, will constantly update for you, and it will basically do everything for you throughout the day without you having to do anything. It's going to search for these stocks that are popping, and it will update anytime a new stock pops up on the list. It'll also update every time a stock drops off of the list. And it's a phenomenal way to get your hands on the best moving stocks, or what you would define as the best moving stocks. Now, again, keep in mind, there's a lot of things that we can do with this. We can add a lot of different filters, we can add all kinds of different studies, but this is just a basic start point to get you going in terms of creating an active scanning stock list within Thinkorswim to kind of help you out and find those best movers. So hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully you found it entertaining, at least something you can add to your tool belt. And as always, again, you can go absolutely nuts on this and add as many studies and fundamentals and patterns and all kinds of things. But it's a great starting point to get a scanner on your screens so you don't miss any of the big movers. That's going to do it for this one. I hope you found it useful, entertaining, interesting, something you can add to your stock scanning list in this case. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, jbrink@slingshotfutures.com, or post a comment below. We can cover those questions from there. Underneath the video, make sure to throw a thumbs up on the video so we know you like the content, and along with that, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these, because there are a lot of good videos that come out throughout the week. Might be a little bit biased on that opinion. Make sure to the right of the subscribe button to click on the bell notification icon as well, just to make sure that you don't miss anything important. That's going to do it for this one. I hope you had a fantastic trading week. I hope you've had a fantastic trading day, and we'll see you all in the next video. Thanks.